I've had a cotton summer dress planned for quite a while, and because this is only the underskirt for that, I really wanted it to be as simple as humanly possible. I'm making it out of a simple white cotton I think is going to launder very easily. It's just going to make my life easy. Though I probably did buy a bit too much of it. I did draft this myself and it was just ridiculously easy really. Just 3 long rectangles and a waistband. I tend not to add seam allowances onto my patterns. I just mark the actual seam line and then just cut around what I think is a reasonable distance. It seems like it takes longer, but really I think it makes the actual sewing much easier, and also you don't have to be too precious about the cutting out. I know this is a bit of a unsophisticated setup, and I really don't recommend you cutting out on the floor, but you know, needs must with this absolutely ridiculous yardage. So all of this left me with 3 very long rectangles that were going to become the tiers of the skirt. The longer pieces are gathered onto the shorter pieces to make the ruffled tiers, and the uppermost tier is gathered onto the waistband. And I'm gathering by hand with just 2 rows of a simple running stitch, and then gathering the fabric along it. It's really easy to just push the fabric down the lines of stitching to make the gathers. And once the longer piece has been gathered down to the length of the shorter piece, all that's left is just to stitch them together with just a simple stitch. Because of the multiplier you have to use when figuring out how much extra length to put on the tiers for the gathers, the 3rd tier seemed absurdly long, but once it was all gathered down and you could see how it was going to go, it did make sense. But at one point I was wondering why I hadn't bothered to get the overlocker out and use the gathering foot. My nanny gave me her old overlocker about 2 years ago now, and honestly I've never used it because the time I brought it home it was just so heavy I have not ever taken it out of the wardrobe to put on my desk. So instead I just faff around with hand gathering. There's only one seam at the back, so it was just a complete godsend that the waistband could go on completely flat. So that's stitched down in just exactly the same manner as the other tiers. Is there a better way to do this? Quite possibly, but it is the way I thought would be easiest, and objectively it really didn't take that much time. And I was left with my rather Little House on the Prairie type underskirt, almost very Victorian looking. And just to take the Victoriana to a new level, thinking of starching it just to really get it stiff and papery. And I've left the hem raw just because when I make the dress that this is for, I really don't want to make it too short so that it doesn't serve its purpose, or too long so that the slip shows and it's just a complete abomination. But in the meantime, that's really sufficient for a simple underskirt.